Welcome back to our series where we use 5 charts to explain a financial trend. This week, it's commodity supercycles.
You might have noticed that the price of commodities has increased dramatically since the start of 2022. But are we already at the peak, or is this just the beginning of a new supercycle?
A commodity supercycle is a sustained increase in the price of commodities that lasts more than 5 years. It's happened just 4 times in the last 100 years. This is what the last one looked like, and this is where we are now.
We've sifted through the data to find the charts that show just exactly what's happened to investments during a commodity supercycle.
We'll tell you why this sector headed over here, while this asset went like that.
So here are our top commodity supercycle charts, counting down from 5 to 1.
The 2000s feels like a long time ago. An era before Twitter or Facebook, when these two were thinking about wars in the Middle East,
those objectives will be achieved.
And when MySpace was still a thing. The 2000s also had a commodity supercycle. This index shows the price of 19 key commodities from 2002 to 2008. It rose steadily across the cycle, making gains of over 200%. How does that compare with 2022? COVID-19 gave the commodity market a huge boost. First came the seismic stimulus packages that caused the surge in demand. Then came the vaccine, which meant dormant sectors burst back into life. These pressures pushed up commodity prices by over 150% in 2 years, almost twice as fast as the last supercycle. In fact, it's already approaching the peaks of 2008. Does that mean investors can expect bigger gains to come? The 2000 supercycle was sustained by the world's biggest consumer, China, doubling its growth rate from 7 to 15%. The recent commodity boom was fueled by unprecedented supply shocks, which might not be stable enough to translate into a full supercycle.
Supercycles are just one economic trend that we've been examining as of late. If you like your analysis in chart form, then you might enjoy our recent 5-chart explainer on stagflation. Now, let's take a look at what a commodity supercycle means for individual market sectors.
When Vladimir Putin took his country to war against Ukraine, there was an unexpected side effect. The price of wheat soared. And that's because Ukraine and Russia are responsible for a quarter of the world's wheat exports. As the war disrupted both countries' supply chains, wheat's price rose 75%. At the same point in the last supercycle, its price was up just 21%. In the 2000s, wheat's gains came later, accelerated in part by an unchecked asset bubble as the world headed slowly towards the subprime mortgage crisis. During those final 100 weeks in 2008, the price of wheat rose by 122%. 2022's peak is still lagging some way behind, but has it risen too far and too fast to match those long-term gains?
It's true that the war has skewed wheat's price upwards, but disruptions to supply chains in Russia and Ukraine could last for years, and that will have an impact on the price of wheat around the world.
To really try to understand if we're in a metal supercycle, we need to dig into copper. because copper is vital for construction, electrical grids, and home appliances. 100 weeks after the lows of April 2020, copper's price doubled, rising far faster than the last cycle. But some of those gains have already been reversed. And that's because of falling global demand. China, which consumes more than half of the world's copper, has continued its COVID lockdown policy. And in the West, rising inflation and higher interest rates have also affected demand. If 2022 slams on the economic brakes and the world falls back into recession, then copper's price could struggle to reach the peaks of the last supercycle when its price soared by nearly 500%.
During the depths of the pandemic, the world suddenly started using a lot less oil. And that's because world leaders told us to do this.
You must stay at home.
But when the world started opening up, oil producers couldn't turn on the taps fast enough, which caused the price of oil to soar. It hit peak after peak and made returns of 526%. Back in the 2000s, as the world was recovering from the dot-com bubble crash, oil made steady but more modest returns. Oil didn't hit the highs we've seen in 2022 until far later in the cycle. While there may be further rises to come, the recent peaks could be an indication that the current oil spike has risen too far, too fast. The world's most popular precious metal often comes out on top.
Everywhere you look, the colour is red.
In recessions, the price of gold has gone up. During periods of stagflation, its price went even higher. So has gold entered a new supercycle? This chart shows you that the answer, surprisingly, is it hasn't. In April 2020, gold was looking a little sluggish, and 2 years later, its price had appreciated by just 4.8%. It's still a long way off its own supercycle. Back in the 2000s, gold made a far more confident start to the decade. After 2 years, its price had climbed 49%, and from there, it went from strength to strength, hitting $993 per ounce at the start of the crash. But gold loves a downturn. If the war in Ukraine, rising inflation, higher interest rates, and COVID disrupted supply chains trigger an economic recession, then that could boost its price. Gold might find its supercycle shine after all.
Thanks for watching. And remember, no two commodity supercycles are exactly the same. They can differ in length and severity, and markets can react differently every time. Don't forget to subscribe to stay alerted to our regular chart analysis videos all through the week and explainers in the future on the big financial topics of the day.